The atmosphere inside the High Court of London has shifted from tense anticipation to a kind of stunned disbelief. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, sat in the witness box, exuding the confidence of a man who believed he was finally holding the sword of justice. He had flown into London on a commercial flight, ready to take down the giants of the British tabloid press, specifically the publishers of the Daily Mail. He believed he was the hunter, finally cornering the beast that had tormented him for decades. But in a twist that would be dismissed as too heavy-handed for a television drama, his own lawyer effectively handed the opposing counsel the loaded weapon that would end the battle. That weapon was a hardbound copy of his own memoir, Spare. The very book that Harry bragged was a record-breaking bestseller. The manuscript he claimed was his definitive truth and the final word on his life is now being wielded against him with surgical precision. Watching the color drain from his face as his own published words were read back to him might just be the most satisfying moment of karmic justice the legal world has witnessed in years. To understand the magnitude of this disaster, we must look closely at the specific mechanics of the trap Harry walked into. He took the stand and swore an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Under cross-examination, he denied having certain specific conversations with his former girlfriend, Chelsea Davy, regarding media intrusion during a trip to Botswana. He looked the court directly in the eye and insisted that those discussions never happened, positioning himself as the victim of journalistic fabrication. He was emphatic. He was certain. And then, with what must have been barely concealed glee, the Daily Mail's legal team opened Spare to the relevant chapter. They proceeded to read passages where Harry himself described those exact conversations in vivid, publishable detail. The court listened in silence as Harry's ghost-written prose contradicted Harry's sworn testimony. The man literally wrote a $20 million confession and then apparently forgot what was in it. The irony here is so thick it is suffocating. Harry spent months on his book tour sitting across from Anderson Cooper and Tom Bradby, insisting that every single word in Spare was accurate, that he had fact-checkers, and that this was the historical record. The Daily Mail's lawyers apparently believed him. They believed him so much that they are now using his own definitive truth to prove he is lying under oath. This is not just a gotcha moment. It is a legal catastrophe. Sources close to the proceedings describe the moment as nothing short of an implosion of credibility. One courtroom observer noted that Harry looked like a man who just realized he had been playing checkers while his opponents were playing three-dimensional chess. The expression on his face suggested he genuinely had not anticipated that his own book would be admissible evidence against him. This raises a damning question about his preparation. Did no one on his highly paid legal team bother to cross-reference his witness statement with his autobiography? Did Harry himself not remember the stories he sold to the world? Or did he simply operate under the assumption that because he is a prince, the normal rules of evidence and consistency would not apply to him? Whatever the reason, the result is the same. He walked into a perjury trap that he built himself, brick by brick, page by page. When you take the stand and swear one thing and your own commercial product says another, you have created what lawyers politely call a credibility problem. In the real world, however, it is called lying, and it destroys your ability to win a case. But the contradiction involving the book was just the beginning of the courtroom disaster. The presiding judge in this case has demonstrated remarkable patience, given the high profile of the claimant, but even judicial temperament has its limits. Multiple times during Harry's testimony, the court was forced to intervene as the prince engaged in behavior that can only be described as combative, argumentative, and fundamentally disrespectful of the legal process. Harry seemed to confuse the witness box with a Twitter thread or an Oprah interview. Instead of answering yes or no, he tried to score points. He tried to debate the philosophy of journalism. He tried to lecture the room on morality. The judge eventually had to cut him off, telling Harry directly that he was doing exactly what lots of litigants do, which is argue back to the barrister. For those not fluent in British legal understatement, let us translate that. The judge essentially told a member of the royal family that he was behaving like an entitled amateur. He was acting like someone who watches too many episodes of legal dramas and thinks cross-examination is a debate club where the loudest voice wins. Observers describe Harry's demeanor as aggressive and restless, looking like a pub prowler desperate for a fight. He wasn't answering questions to clarify the truth. He was answering them to attack his perceived enemies. In a court of law, that strategy is suicide. Every time he argued instead of answered, every time he rolled his eyes or scoffed at the defense counsel, his credibility took another hit. He proved that he was not an objective witness to facts, but a man consumed by a vendetta. While the behavioral meltdown was painful to watch, the financial reality bearing down on Prince Harry is terrifying. The judge issued an extraordinary warning regarding the costs of this litigation. The claimants in this group action, which includes Harry, have already spent an absolutely staggering £40 million in legal fees. That number is difficult to comprehend. It is the kind of money that could fund humanitarian operations for a decade. Instead, it has been funneled into a legal war that appears to be crumbling. The judge made it explicitly clear that if the claimants lose this case, they could be personally liable for a significant portion of those costs. For Harry, a man whose financial empire is built on increasingly shaky foundations, this represents an existential threat. We must look at the reality of his income streams. The Spotify deal collapsed in humiliation, with executives labeling him a grifter. The Netflix deal is reportedly underperforming and nearing its end. His speaking engagements have dried up as his popularity has plummeted. If he loses this lawsuit and after his performance on the stand, that outcome looks increasingly likely. He could be on the hook for tens of millions of pounds. He isn't just fighting for his reputation anymore. He is fighting for his solvency. He is gambling his Montecito lifestyle, his security, and his future on a case where he cannot even keep his story straight. The prospect of financial ruin is no longer a tabloid rumor. It is a mathematical probability hanging over his head in a London courtroom. In the midst of this aggressive, combative performance, there was a sudden shift in tone that left the courtroom baffled. Harry choked up. Tears welled in his eyes. It should have been a powerful moment of vulnerability, a glimpse of the human cost of media intrusion. However, the tears came at the wrong time, about the wrong person, in a case where the timing made absolutely no sense. Harry became emotional while describing Meghan Markle's suffering and the toll the media had taken on her. It was a touching narrative, except for one glaring issue. This lawsuit concerns events that happened years before he even met Meghan. The timeline does not match. He was crying about someone who is essentially irrelevant to the actual legal claims being adjudicated regarding phone hacking in the mid-2000s. Even more suspicious was the timing of this emotional display. The tears did not come during a brutal cross-examination by the defense. They came during questioning from his own lawyer. In legal circles, this is viewed with extreme skepticism. Genuine emotion usually bubbles up under pressure. Rehearsed emotion appears when the witness feels safe. To the cynical observers in the press gallery, it looked like a calculated performance. It appeared to be a strategic attempt to generate a sympathetic headline, Harry breaks down, to distract from the headlines about his inconsistencies. But the media wasn't fooled, and neither was the judge. Instead of generating sympathy, the crocodile tears just confirmed what many suspected, that this is a man more interested in public relations theater than in the cold, hard facts of justice. Harry's testimony also sought to dismantle the long-standing narrative that the palace prevented him from seeking justice. One of the central pillars of his victimhood has been the claim that the never complain, never explain policy shackled him, leaving him defenseless against the wolves of the press. He has told this story for years, painting himself as a man who wanted to fight, but was held back by the men in gray suits. However, the defense demolished this excuse with a single, undeniable fact. Prince William, Harry's own brother, successfully sued media outlets for privacy violations while serving as a working royal. not once, but multiple times. The court was reminded that William and Catherine took legal action against foreign magazines over invasion of privacy and won. They demonstrated that the royal family's policy did not prevent them from seeking justice through the courts when their privacy was genuinely violated. The difference was in the execution. William sued quietly, professionally, and with a solid legal case. He didn't turn it into a circus. He didn't give interviews about it. He simply let the lawyers do the work. By bringing this up, the defense proved that Harry wasn't stopped from suing. He was just stopped from making a spectacle of it. His brother's success proves that Harry's failure is not institutional. It is personal. The path to justice was always open, but Harry chose the path of celebrity victimhood instead. The absolute audacity of Prince Harry complaining about the commercialization of his life would be hilarious if it were not so breathtakingly hypocritical. There he sat in the witness box, lamenting how the Daily Mail had exploited his personal experiences for profit, how they had turned his pain into their product to sell newspapers. And he said this while his $20 million memoir sat on bestseller lists, a book in which he sold out his brother, his father, and his sister-in-law for a paycheck. He said this while his $100 million Netflix documentary streamed globally, a series in which he filmed his own children and exposed private family moments. No newspaper has ever cashed in on Prince Harry's private life more effectively than Prince Harry himself. He is the CEO of his own trauma industry. To sit in a court of law and judge others for writing about him, when he has sold the story of his frostbitten Todger and his brother's private text to the highest bidder, is a level of cognitive dissonance that requires medical attention. The defense hammered this point home, leaving Harry looking less like a privacy advocate and more like a man who simply wants a monopoly on the monetization of his own life. He doesn't hate the invasion of privacy. He hates the competition. Perhaps the most pathetic revelation to emerge from Harry's time in London involves not what happened inside the courtroom, but what happened outside of it. Sources close to the situation have confirmed that throughout his visit, Harry checked his phone daily, sometimes multiple times per day, to see whether Prince William or King Charles had reached out to make contact. He was waiting for the olive branch. He was waiting for the good luck text or the invitation to tea. Spoiler alert, they did not call. The silence from his family was deafening, and apparently it crushed him. Let us let that sink in. Here is a man who has spent years publicly attacking his family, accusing them of racism, of neglect, of leaking stories, and of being trapped in a toxic institution. He has tried to burn the House of Windsor to the ground on global television, and yet he possesses a disconnect from reality so profound that he still expected them to call him because he was in town. It screams of loneliness and desperation. The scene at his court appearance made the isolation painfully visible. Instead of sitting alongside family members or longtime royal associates, Harry found himself with Damien Hurley, the son of Elizabeth Hurley, as his most notable companion. When you are the son of a king and your courtroom support system consists of a C-list celebrity's offspring rather than any blood relatives or old friends, the optics are absolutely brutal. It is the visual representation of a man who has burned every bridge and is now surprised he cannot walk across them. The cascading disasters of Harry's courtroom appearance have crystallized something that royal observers have long suspected. We are witnessing a man in the midst of complete self-destruction. The contradictions in Spare proved he cannot keep his own story straight. The fake tears fooled no one and damaged whatever credibility remained. The judge's repeated rebukes exposed his arrogance and his inability to control his temper. The financial risk threatens to wipe out his future. Harry walked into that courtroom thinking he was a hero fighting a dragon, a noble warrior slaying the beast of the British media. Instead, he walked out looking like a fool who set himself on fire. This is not just a legal failure, it is a failure of character. It is the culmination of years of surrounding himself with yes men who refuse to tell him the hard truths. A competent advisor would have read Spare and told him, "Sir, You cannot sue on these grounds because you have already admitted the opposite in Chapter 12. A competent advisor would have told him, "Sir, do not cry about your wife when the case is about your ex-girlfriend." But Harry has isolated himself from competence. He has retreated into a fortress of solitude in Montecito, where reality is whatever he says it is. And now that he has stepped out of that fortress and into a court of law, reality is hitting him with the force of a freight train. The implications for his future are grim. If he loses this case, it won't be because the system is rigged, as he will undoubtedly claim. It will be because he handed the defense the matches to burn his case down. The financial devastation could force him into even more desperate and degrading commercial deals, selling off whatever scraps of royal dignity remain. The reputational damage is likely permanent. He has branded himself as a liar under oath. And the family estrangement is now cemented. The King and the Prince of Wales have seen that Harry is not just a nuisance, but a liability who cannot be trusted with the truth. As the legal proceedings grind on, the image of Harry sitting alone in that courtroom, angry, tearful, and caught in his own web of contradictions, serves as a tragic metaphor for his post-royal life. He wanted freedom, but he found chaos. He wanted a voice, but he used it to destroy his own credibility. He wanted to be a leader, but he proved he cannot even lead himself out of a perjury trap. The book Spare was supposed to be his weapon, his manifesto, his ticket to financial independence. Instead, it became his verdict. Prince Harry has no one to blame but the author. The final chapter of this saga hasn't been written yet, but the ending feels inevitable. The prince who wanted to bring down the press has only succeeded in bringing down himself.